Welcome to the Eastern Bloc. There are crimes that scar a nation, and then there are crimes that stain humanity itself. What happened at Dnipro, Ukraine in 2007 wasn't just another murder spree. It was a descent into the purest form of cruelty, the systematic torture and slaughter of the weak, the defenseless, and the innocent. The trio, Viktor Sayenko, Igor Supranyuk, and Alexander Ganja, were all born in 1988 in the city of Dnipro, then still called Dnepropetrovsk. They grew up together, went to the same school, shared the same classrooms and secrets. By the fifth grade, teachers and neighbors already knew something was wrong. They were caught throwing rocks at a passing train, a dangerous act that could have killed passengers. But their parents were powerful. Sayenka's father worked for the prosecutor's office. Supranyuk's mother was a senior government official, and his father, the private pilot of former Ukrainian President Leonid Kuchma. Because of those connections, the boys never faced consequences. Even as children, they had an obsession with documenting themselves, posing for photos, recording each other on video, but their memories weren't of birthday parties or teenage fun. They filmed animal torture, dogs beaten to death, cats impaled. They smeared swastikas in blood and saluted the camera like Nazis. Supernuke bragged that he was born on the same day that Adolf Hitler, even drawing on a fake mustache to pose like his idol. Neighbors saw him run over cats and dogs in the car his parents bought him. Everyone saw, but no one dared to report it. And so the rot festered. By 15, they'd lost any trace of empathy. They beat a child just to steal his bicycle. They sold it for pocket money. When they mutilated two boys' faces beyond recognition, nothing happened. Their parents covered it up again. They learned one thing early. They were untouchable, and with that came the hunger to go further. At first, their victims were animals, then they moved on to people. Their attacks were methodical, always the same pattern: ambush from behind, sudden blows to the head, complete overkill. They chose the weakest: women, pensioners, children, drunks, the disabled, homeless. Their weapons were simple: hammers, sledgehammers, metal rods, screwdrivers, sometimes knives, sometimes whatever they found nearby. They didn't just kill, they destroyed faces, smashing skulls until their victims were unrecognizable. Some were mutilated while still alive, eyes gouged out, bones shattered, screams echoing in the night. One pregnant woman had her unborn child cut from her body. Between March and July 2007, they murdered over 20 people and attacked more than 50. They called it hunting, they filmed it, and they laughed. The first documented crime came in October 2006, a robbery targeting two university students. Months later, in January 2007, they attacked 70-year-old Lydia Beklenisheva as she fed stray dogs near the river. Supernuke struck her with a metal pipe, then kicked her teeth out, mistaking her dental crowns for gold. When the dogs attacked them in defense, the boys shot them with rubber bullet pistols, killing two instantly. The woman survived. She crawled, bleeding, to a local building where a guard called for help. The attack was recorded on video. It was only the beginning. On March 3rd, 2007, they committed their first murder. Their victim, 61-year-old pensioner Viktor Gatunok. When Sayenka hesitated, disturbed by what he'd seen, Supernuke turned to him and said calmly, "It's done. I killed him. From then on, there was no going back." April 21st, Supernuke's 19th birthday. He celebrated it by attacking a woman, Svetlana Fedina, with a hammer. She lived and later identified him as her assailant. 2 months later, the spree erupted. June 24th, 2007, a 23-year-old police officer named Vadim Bogdan accepted a ride in Supernuke's car. He was found dead hours later, beaten to death near the village of Kirilovka. The next day, two more bodies appeared: 33-year-old Ekaterina Ilchenko and 34-year-old Roman Tatarevich. 3 days after that, they struck again, murdering 69-year-old cyclist Alexei Kovbasa. In the footage, Supernuke walks up behind Kovbasa and smashes his skull with a hammer wrapped in a plastic bag. The man falls from his bicycle, writhing in agony, as Sayenko films, laughing. They continue to beat him, stab him, and finally, Supernuke drives a screwdriver through the man's eye, piercing his brain. He was still alive when the camera stopped recording. The next day, police found the body and dismissed it as a traffic accident. 3 officers were later fired for negligence. But the killings didn't stop. On July 1st, they murdered two teenagers, 15-year-old Evgeny Grishenko and Nikolai Serchuk, who had gone out late for cigarettes. On July 7th, they killed night guard Helena Shram and then soldier Igor Nevcholoda. They even attacked two 13-year-old boys that night. One escaped. His friend didn't. His testimony finally gave police their first real leads, but by then it was too late. They were killing almost every day. On July 9, they killed a man in Pishanka and stole his scooter. On July 10, they beat to death cyclist Nikolai Marianchikov, stealing only his camera. On July 12, they murdered 80-year-old Regina Prokopenko, then decapitated 48-year-old Sergei Yatsenko, filming the entire act. The video shows Yatsenko alive as his throat is slit, then his head is severed. Supernuke cuts off one of his ears and places it on his stomach. Sayenka films it all, emotionless. 2 days later, they attacked 45-year-old Natalia Mamarchuk as she rode her moped through a forest road. They beat her to death with a hammer, then rode away on her bike. Two children saw everything, a boy and a girl. They ran after the killers but couldn't catch them. On July 19, the maniacs claimed their final victims: Yuri Pichotin killed in his sleep by the roadside, and Valentina Ganja beaten to death at a bus stop. That night, they drove to a quarry known as the Redstone, dumped the stolen scooters and several broken mobile phones into the water. Unaware of a local man had seen everything. He called the police, and that's how they were finally caught. Police didn't want to believe it at first. The victims were too different: man, woman, old, young, homeless, working class. But eyewitness accounts and the patterns matched. The breakthrough came when one of the victims' mobile phones was switched on. Detective traced the signal, bought the phone back from a pawn shop, and found videos stored inside. Footage of animal torture, footage of a man being bludgeoned to death, faces clearly visible, Sayenka, super nude. They were arrested soon after. Inside one of their hideouts, police found their trophies: bloody tools, Nazi flags, animal remains, and dozens of photo and video files of their crimes. There was even a written list, a record of their victims, whom Supernuk referred to as his slaves, claiming they would serve him in the afterlife. In another abandoned building, officers discovered boxes filled with severed animal paws and tails, and a crucified poodle nailed to the wall. During interrogation, the killers confessed calmly, without emotion. But before the trial, they changed their story, claiming the footage was edited and that the police had tortured them into confessing. Forensic experts confirmed the videos were real and unaltered. In court, witnesses and journalists wept as the videos were played. People turned away, unable to watch the images of human beings reduced to pulp. Even hardened detectives struggled to stay in a room. Supernuke was convicted of 21 murders, 8 armed robberies, and 1 count of animal cruelty. Sayenko, 18 murders, 5 robberies, 1 count of animal cruelty. Ganja, 2 armed robberies. The verdict, Sayenko and Supernuke, life imprisonment. Ganja, 9 years. Ukrainians feared they'd walk free thanks to their family's influence. But for once, justice prevailed, or so it seemed. Ganja served his full 9-year sentence, was released, married, and reportedly has 2 children. Neighbors say he's quiet now, changed, perhaps. He refuses all interviews. Supernuk and Sayenko, however, remained behind bars for years, until recently. When Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in 2022, Kyiv introduced new laws allowing convicted prisoners, even lifers, to volunteer for military service. In exchange, they could earn their freedom. According to multiple reports, Viktor Sayenka and Igor Supranyuk were among those released under this program. They signed contracts with Ukrainian armed forces, but they never fought. They escaped. They vanished from their unit, stealing military weapons, and disappeared somewhere in the chaos of war. Police believe they might have fled to another region, possibly even abroad. No one knows where they are. No one knows if they've killed again. But given who they are, what they've done, and how easily they once fooled everyone, it's hard to believe they simply stopped.